And we see why I got Darkalexandr underway, so I'm going to have to do a slight pause here to... Alright, that should get them pretty close to equal. Alright, and they're underway. We have an invulnerability on Darkalexandr. Beadle gets a nuke using it, as does Darkalexandr on the second drop. And grenades on Beadle's side, so no one getting that Razor Shield set up in place. Instead, just going with what the game's going to give them. Bravery afoot, but unfortunately no Razor Shield here. Oh, finally a late Razor Shield here for Beadle. I don't know if it's going to make much of a difference here, but... No, with the usage of the nukes delayed in the room. So it'll be Darkalexandr out of the room first with a 45 versus about a 50 for Beadle. We got some good lucks from another competitor in the tournament, Dark Lord Gonzo, who is looking to set up a match with Starwind3437. That'll be another one later this week. That's the only one where it's a 1-0 versus 0-1. But we don't care about that. Darkalexandr has an option, is now trying to hold down that orb without getting it clipped by an enemy. Beadle, meanwhile, using invulnerabilities and a foot. And a nuke cleans it up, and we get a rockets now on Beadle's side. But the longer he goes without that option, the longer that Darkalexandr holds that orb, my oh my, it is going to be a growing lead for Darkalexandr. Beadle grabbing everything in sight, but still no orb. It's a 132 for Darkalexandr into Eat My Shrapnel as Beadle's finishing off the last of the enemies here in Collect Power-Ups. So in Eat My Shrapnel, you have 18 shrapnel to kill. You have a set amount of swarmers. However, you can only have 4 shrapnels on screen at a time. And the longer you have those 4 on screen, the longer the room's going to take. If you do it optimally, this room's about 42.5 seconds. But if you are having troubles keeping those enemies under control, as no doubt Beadle's going to with these drops, those rockets will help at least. As you can see, Darkalexandr, using that option, was able to plow under all the swarmers and get set up here to get out of the room much quicker. And it'll be a 219 for Darkalexandr. 220, something along those range. And actually, Beadle made up some time there, so not too shabby, honestly. Razor Shield for Beadle, still not seeing the benefits of that orb. Now, this is kind of where, if you don't have that orb in hand, you'll see the time bleed really come into play. The game is not being too kind to Beadle thus far. But a lot of weapons, getting a Razor Shield, the game's at least giving him something. And there it is, he's got his orb, so now we're up for a good race. Who can hold that orb longer? And right in the middle of the race, Gorlock9000 with the subscription to the stream. Thank you kindly. Appreciate it. But right now we got a real...
We may as well just... We're done! Wow, we're done.
And of course I forgot that he has sound bites attached to him. That's just going to happen. That's part of subscribing. If you subscribe to the stream, you do in fact get yourself a personalized soundbite attached into your name. So that's kind of fun. Anyway, Beadle loses his orb fairly late in the room as Darkalexandr finishes it off. He'll be out the door at a 329. And Beadle, looking to finish off the last 2 shrapnels, is going to get about a 336. It is a 7-second lead. So despite going a long time in that room without an orb, he did a good job of maintaining. But again, he's missing his orb, but at least he's getting lots and lots of prizes. He's going to go get that question mark in the corner, and we'll see what Darkalexandr gets for a drop first in tank trouble. He gets a 1-up. You can just ignore that. It's totally nonsensical. Beadle really needs a good drop here. Vitamin R would be huge. It's a spreader. Great movement. Runs between the mines. Kills one of them. Can he get to that rocket without dying? It's going to be a rough go. He's ignoring the rockets. What a freaking madman. And he doesn't get them. Meanwhile, Darkalexandr has dropped his orb. He has picked up rockets. This is going to be a real close one. Now, great movement. Well, initially great movement by Darkalexandr, but ran most of that Razor Shield into a shrapnel, unfortunately. So now the shield is gone already. Quick as it showed up, it is gone. And an orb now for Darkalexandr. Lots of protective gear here for Beadle. Getting himself invulnerabilities and a Razor Shield. Destroys most of the Razor Shield attacking a shrapnel. Not necessarily the greatest move to make in this room. Now rockets for Darkalexandr. The reason you want to ignore the shrapnels are there's always going to be 2 on screen. They really are not worth killing, and Darkalexandr will be out the door in a 5-0-4. Meanwhile, Beadle trying to finish off tank trouble. But as you can see, that orb and those rockets making a big difference there. And Beadle gets clubbed. What will Darkalexandr get? He will get an invulnerability, not a great drop. He's just going to ignore it and focus on getting rid of the gunners. Meanwhile, rockets in hand for Beadle, hoping to finish this room off sooner than later. He should be finishing at any moment. Meanwhile, Alexander loses the orb, can't get the spreader. He's still done no actual damage to Mutoid. Finally gets some grenades, but dies. So a real bad start. Oh, but he gets a spreader after the death. That's a fortunate outcome. He's not grinding into Mutoid, oddly enough. I guess he was worried about his invulnerability right now. He still landed enough to pop the first arm. But Beadle getting those lobbers, taking a shot, trying to get rid of the gunners. Not quite working how he wanted it. And he's looking for the weapon. But no, Mutoid Man camps on it like a mama bird. Another spreader for Darkalexandr now. Gets that second arm popped. Both turrets gone now for Beadle. There's a lobber. Can he get to it? He does. Rockets on Alexander, followed by grenades. And now a key for Beadle. He can just ignore that and just focus up on these lobber shots, because you'll be able to get another drop here pretty quickly. That lobber can last a long time on easy, which is the mode we're playing. Another key here, this time on Darkalexandr's side. And more lobbers for Beadle, the more consistent weapon for fighting in the tournament. He gets a spreader now. There goes the ribcage. There goes the arm. It's about a 1-form lead for Darkalexandr. And he's, again, ignoring that invulnerability. Another invulnerability this time on Alexander's side, but he can ignore it as well. There goes that. Now a foot. Beadle feeling the wrath of bad drops, but gets a spreader. Can spreader... Oh, no! Mutoid Man blocks the run! Blocks the run! Will not get that spreader. Mutoid Man is going full Mutoid. Lobber now for Alexander. Beadle gets a spreader. Kind of wants to see that invulnerability drop. No, it's going to be a lobber. There goes the rib cage. But Alexander should be popped. There it is. There goes the pop of the outer shell. 1 form remains for Darkalexandr. It's looking like Alexander's race to lose right now. Will the game give the weapon drops to give a chance? And good, no death there. That spreader was a great location, but that... Oh, no! Gets run over. That spreader damage does not do enough. Or doesn't do the extra damage on the final form. There goes the head for Beadle, but I think it's over, and it is. Darkalexandr is going to take race number 1 as Beadle pops off the outer shell. Hopefully going to get to that lobber and finish off Mutoid Man. It's a 7:55 for Darkalexandr, taking race number 1 in this best of 3 match. Beadle getting a little antsy there, walks into the shrapnel blast. Probably able to finish him off here with his grenade. Getting pushed across the room and laughing at the invulnerability. Laughing with that invulnerability happened. No, not enough. This should definitely finish off. It won't take much now with a lobber in hand. Indeed, it's all over here. Match number 1, indeed, goes to Darkalexandr. And Beadle111 will now have to win game number 2, or it will be curtains in this matchup. It was definitely Putroid all over the place. So when they ready up, we will get game number 2 of this best of 3 matchup. Beadle needs to win 2 on the trot here to take the match. Darkalexandr has 2 potential shots to win 1 to take home the victory. And keeping in mind, the winner will move to 1-1, setting up a really important matchup in round number 3. The loser will go to 0-2, and that'll set them up for a really tall hill to climb. Alright, so Beadle is readied up, Alexander is readied up, so we will get underway momentarily. I've given them the countdown, they should be moving, and we will get number 2 underway. I gotta tell you, Beadle is gonna hope for some better general luck. A lot of Mutoid Man trolling, a long time without that option. It just wasn't meant to be, but with two players so close together in skill, I'm expecting we will see a good one here. Alright, and they're moving out. See what we get. It's a Razor Shield for Beadle. Just got to get it without getting clipped. And now a Razor Shield for Darkalexandr. So both getting a better start here. Neither making use of the priest's setup so they can get the better items to start. Both making good use of it. Smashing it into the enemy here. Oh, Darkalexandr just about gets clubbed. Beadle has destroyed the shield entirely. But Darkalexandr uses the nuke to finish the room off very quickly. That's a gold first room for Darkalexandr. And Beadle gets a 44. Last time it was 45 for Alexander, 50 for Beadle. So that was huge improvements for both. Rockets to start on Alexander. What do we get for Beadle? Beadle gets grenades. So again, the early drops favoring Darkalexandr. Not looking so great here for Beadle thus far. There's a nuke use by Darkalexandr. Using those rockets sparingly and just ripping it through enemies. Now we got a nuke over on Beadle's side. A foot here for Alexander. Choosing to ignore it. And just making use of what's given. Oddly enough, not grabbing that foot. It was close enough to the middle. It wasn't a bad grab. Lots of weapons and feet, but no orbs for either competitors. There it is. Alexander sees an orb. A good route gets it for him. Nice and safe. Finishes the room off. We'll be out the door in a minute 36. And Beadle has actually kept it even with a 3-second gap here. But again, no orbs, so he's going to have to work really hard here to keep this room under control and try to avoid losing too much time. Alexander ripping away here, as is Beadle, but Beadle desperately needs an orb. He can't be expected to work from behind like this, but the game just seems intent on not letting him have any fun. Now a Razor Shield for Alexander. Oddly enough, having a bit of trouble keeping the shrapnel numbers under control here with the orb in hand. Usually pretty easy once you get the initial enemy and swirls cleared out. Then you can just hold the middle. It's a 223 for Darkalexandr, as Beadle has kept pretty close, only losing a couple seconds, 5 seconds back, heading into total carnage. Really needs that. Smart Bomb's not a bad first drop. Beadle will take that. It clears out the room. It allows you to set up here, hopefully. Gets a Razor Shield. Both of them getting a Razor Shield. And Darkalexandr, unfortunately, losing a piece on a shrapnel right out the door on the hop. But what can you do? Spreaders back to back now for Beadle. Still hoping to see that option. But no dice thus far. Ignoring the nuke. The shield melts. Meanwhile, Alexander setting up here. Does not get the spawn in on the nuke. I think that's what he was attempting to do there. And finally an orb shows up. But can it be grabbed safely? No, it cannot. Beadle was not able to clear the enemy to get it without it dying immediately. Unfortunate outcome there. Really needed to get that, but sometimes the game does not cooperate. Darkalexandr will be done the room first in a time of 3:28. And rockets for Beadle trying to finish this room off. Gets to the spreader. I was going to say, where are all the dang shrapnels? There comes the swirl, and the swirl gets Beadle. That is an unfortunate outcome, to put it lightly. This is the end of the room, but it is going to be a 20-second lead, more or less, for Darkalexandr. Beadle's going to need something to start breaking his way here soon, or it's going to be all over. Another one-up to start. Oh, no! Alexander gets the orb clip. That's a good break for Beadle. Beadle now running laps around the bottom of the bonus room as Alexander gets the invulnerability. Now rockets. Oh, good old hope. That is indeed it. Back-to-back rockets for Alexander. These are great drops here. Trying to make some room to hold things up. Beadle fighting heroically from the middle, is not getting any drops to help. Look at him expertly running around getting that. Oh, Darkalexandr gets clubbed, but another set of rockets. There's an orb for Beadle. Does get it without getting killed on that mine, but loses it pretty quickly, unfortunately. Trying to take out that turret on the wall with a tank right there. Does get killed. The turret goes down. Beadle needs something as Darkalexandr gets an orb. The drops have definitely favored Darkalexandr in this room. 4 sets of rockets, 2 orbs, really working in his favor at the moment. As Beadle is really getting fast with those feet, gets an invulnerability. The orb gone on Darkalexandr's side, hoping to get those rockets and maybe finish the room off here. And yes, it is the end of the room here for Darkalexandr. Out at a time of 5-12, as more feet here for Beadle. The drops have just not been kind to our British competitor. As in yet another set of feet. Oh my goodness, game, what are you doing? Rockets here for Darkalexandr. Somehow avoids that swirl mess as Beadle uses a nuke. Now trying to finish off yet another set of feet. How many feet has Beadle had in this room? It has been ridiculous. Grenades and now a launcher, or a lobber, pardon me, for Darkalexandr. Beadle's bleed here is pretty immense. He's going to need Mutoid Man to really stick it to Darkalexandr, but thus far, no dice. It is going to be probably about a minute lead coming in. It has been a rough go here for Beadle. But Darkalexandr only popped the 1 arm and gets killed. Oh my, but only 1 arm gone. Oh, Alexandr has a great setup to die, but grabs the spreader instead. Not a great move, but gets the 2nd arm popped. Gets run over. A lobber to start now for Beadle. Is this the opening Beadle's going to need? Beadle gets electrocuted. Can Beadle get to the lobber? Yes. Finishes off the gunner. Now a lobber for Alexandr. Beadle's got a spreader set up. Trying to get to it. No, doesn't take the death. That's both of them now have missed a spreader setup. That was very easy to get with that death. Oh my, not what you want to see here, guys. Back-to-back lobbers for Alexandr. Lobber for Beadle. Now a spreader. Pops the 1st arm. Trying to go with that spreader and deal extra damage, but a little too low on the body. A little too low on the body. Gets the new lobber as Darkalexandr pops the head. It's about a 2.5 form lead. It's going to have to be something crazy here now for Beadle, or it's all over. The 2nd arm comes off as rockets are pounding in on Alexandr's side, looking to pop off the final shell. Tries to get the foot, but dies. If it's a spread, oh, net an invulnerability. A small opening here, a small ray of light, as it were. As Alexandr does get a spreader, dancing awfully close considering he can't deal extra damage. We're down to the rib cage on Beadle's side, but it's probably going to be too little too late with lobber followed by lobber for Alexandr. As Alexandr pounding shot but gets run over, but has rockets at the door, and that will give a good chance to kill as well as Beadle goes down again. But that's it. That's it. Darkalexandr is going to take it. Dies here. We'll have to use a credit. That'll cost a second or two. And there was some spreader damage on Beadle's side. Final form is up, but it's too little, too late. Darkalexandr is going to win this race 2-0. Oh my. Beadle had some terrible luck along the way and just couldn't quite execute with what was given, unfortunately. So congrats to Darkalexandr, taking the win, moving to 1-1. Meanwhile, Beadle will drop to 0-2 and will need to win 3 in a row to make it to the knockout stages. Life support for Beadle at this point in time. And there it is. Beadle finishes off with a set of rockets. It'll be about an 8:53, 8:54. And 1 hour from now, guys, 1 hour from now, we have another matchup on this very channel between Jackamus Wedge and Tapatio J. So thank you to both our competitors for taking part. I'm going to do a quick little Dragon Warrior randomizer, and we will get ready for the next matchup.